is your choice and your responsibility. In this video, we're going into the one place most traders never dare to look, inside the mirror maze of their own mind. We'll expose the 15 psychological archetypes that secretly sabotage your decisions, drain your confidence, and keep you stuck in patterns that feel impossible to break. This isn't another strategy video. I won't teach you indicators. I won't sell you setups. I'll do something more dangerous. I'll introduce you to the only person responsible for every dollar you've ever lost and every win you couldn't hold on to. I'll show you the shadow behind the chart, and once you see him, you'll never be able to unsee him. By the end of this journey, you won't just understand trading better, you'll understand yourself, the real trader inside the terminal, the one who wins not by force, but by finally seeing the truth. Where you discover the problem isn't out there. Insight 1, the mirror maze. You think you're analyzing the market, you think you're spotting a pattern, you think you're using logic. But what if, without realizing it, every trade you place is just a reflection of something inside you? Your fear, your ego, your need to win, or your belief that you always lose. Picture this. You walk into a maze made entirely of mirrors. At first, you think it's about finding the way out. But after a while, you notice something strange. The walls aren't reflecting your full image, only pieces of you. One mirror shows your confidence, another shows your anger, another shows a child still seeking validation. You start to realize this maze isn't trying to trap you. It's trying to show you who you are and which parts of you are controlling your decisions. This is what every trading day is like. The charts become mirrors, the candles become reflections, and your trading terminal, it's the place where your inner world spills out into the market. I remember a trader who had everything dialed in: risk management, entries, journaling, backtesting, the whole checklist. But his P&L was flatlining, no consistency. He'd win big one week, then slowly bleed it all back. He blamed volatility. He blamed the news cycle. Until one day, in a moment of silence, he wrote in his journal, "What if I don't actually believe I deserve to win?" That sentence hit him like a freight train, not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. And that's what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Most traders think they need better setups, but what they really need is a better self. Mark Douglas echoed the same thing in a different language. He said, "You don't trade the market, you trade your belief system. Every chart you see is filtered through your expectations, your trauma, your stories. That's why the same pattern gives you a different result every time. Because you are different every time. So ask yourself, when you open that chart, who is actually sitting at the desk? Is it the strategist, the gambler, the orphan, the perfectionist, the addict? Because if you never pause to ask that question, you'll just keep running through the maze, hoping a better system will save you when what you really need is a better mirror. But here's the thing. This is just the surface reflection. The real enemy isn't just your shadow. It's that he's invisible, and he's been trading in your name all along. Insight 2. The invisible enemy. Every trader thinks they're in control until they're not. Until they press buy on a setup that doesn't really match their rules. Until they triple their size on a random Tuesday. Until they skip journaling after a bad week. And when it all goes south, they say, "I don't know what happened." But deep down, they do. They just can't name it, because it's invisible. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't realize they have two traders inside them. The first is the one they want to be, disciplined, calm, logical. The second is the one they've spent their whole lives ignoring. The emotional one, the impulsive one. The one who's terrified of uncertainty, desperate for control, and constantly trying to avoid pain. The one who hates not knowing. Mark Douglas called this trader the emotional self. Carl Jung called him the unconscious shadow. It doesn't matter what you call him, because either way, he's been placing your trades when you're not looking. I know this enemy intimately. For years, I thought I was a disciplined trader. My analysis was sharp, my risk management solid. But every few months, like clockwork, I'd have a day where I'd lose 3 months of profits in 3 hours. And every time, I'd swear it was the last time, until it wasn't. It wasn't until I started tracking not just my trades, but my emotional state before each trade, that I saw the pattern. The invisible enemy showed up whenever I felt insignificant in my personal life. A fight with my partner, a rejection from a client, a comment from a friend. And suddenly, the market became my boxing ring, where I could prove I mattered. This is the invisible enemy, the part of you that hides beneath the logic, the fear of being wrong, the craving to feel safe, the need to recover a loss to prove you're not a loser. It doesn't show up in back tests. It shows up when real money's on the line. And here's the kicker. You can't outsmart him. You can't suppress him. Because what you resist persists. The only way out is through. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The same is true for trading. The more you deny your emotional patterns, the more they control you. So, the next time you feel the urge to just click the button, stop. Close your eyes and ask, who wants this trade? Is it my strategy or my fear? Quick test for you. When was the last time you traded against your own rules? If it was this week, you're not alone. Drop a comment below. Let's normalize the fact that we all have an invisible trader inside us. Because if you never learn to see the invisible trader inside you, he will keep trading in the dark with your money. And if that sounds concerning, wait until you meet the one who doesn't just sabotage you once, but does it on repeat, like a broken record you can't turn off. Insight 3. The loop of self-sabotage. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't hit all at once. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It starts with a small loss, then a little revenge trade, then some self-justification, then a reset account, and then, quietly, without warning, you're right back where you started, again and again and again. It's like Groundhog Day, but instead of Bill Murray learning piano, it's your P&L learning new ways to disappoint you with the same old mistakes. That's the loop. And I lived in it for 2 years straight. Every Monday, I'd start fresh. New week, new mindset, new discipline. By Wednesday, I'd be over-leveraged. By Friday, I'd be journaling about how next week will be different. The pattern was so predictable, I could have traded it. Win, loss, revenge trade, regret, reset. Like a heartbeat monitor of a trader slowly dying. It doesn't matter how many strategies you learn, how many journals you fill, how many hours you spend backtesting. If there's a wound you haven't healed, it will find its way back into your execution. Not just once, but until you finally face it. I remember working with a trader named Eli. He was obsessed with control. His setups were exact to the pip. His risk was always 1%. His journals were color-coded. But every few weeks, without fail, he'd have one catastrophic blow-up trade. And every time, he swore it wouldn't happen again. Until it did. One day, during a coaching call, I asked him to walk me through what happened right before his biggest losing trade. He paused, then laughed nervously. I had a fight with my dad that morning. He said I was wasting my life playing pretend with charts. And just like that, it clicked. The blow-up wasn't random. It was a rebellion. His inner child was trading to say, I'll prove you wrong, watch me win big. But the market doesn't care about your story. It only reflects it. This is why Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. In trading, fate looks like self-sabotage that feels out of your control, but was actually created by a pattern you've lived for years. Mark Douglas put it simply, we live in a loop of expectation, disappointment, and emotional reinforcement until we rewrite the code. So, how do you break the loop? You don't fight it. You observe it. You map it. You name the moment when your state shifts, when you go from logical to reactive, from present to triggered, from trader to child. Every loop starts with a feeling, a twitch, a voice, a need to get it back or get it over with. That's your signal, not to trade, but to stop trading. Because here's the scary part. The longer the loop goes unbroken, the more it becomes your identity. And once that happens, even success feels wrong, and you'll unconsciously give it back. But there's hope, because if you can name your loop, you can step outside of it. And when you step outside of it, you'll see who's really been running the show. You might think it's just a bad habit, but what if it's something deeper? What if it's your shadow stepping into the light? Insight 4. The Shadow Trader. There's a moment, right before disaster, where everything goes quiet. You see the chart clearly. You know the setup isn't there. You feel the risk is too high. Your rational mind whispers, don't do it. But then, click, that wasn't you. Not the you that journals, studies, practices. That was someone else. A version of you that lives in the shadows, that watches silently as you pretend to be in control. And in that moment, when fear spikes or greed flares, he takes over. Carl Jung called this part of us the shadow, the collection of traits we suppress, deny, or are too ashamed to admit. The impulsive, the arrogant, the insecure, the desperate. Most traders think they're logical machines, but they've just never met their shadow in the heat of live execution. Consider the case of a trader I worked with who had a PhD in mathematics, absolute genius, built a profitable algo, managed funds, seemed bulletproof. But once a month, he'd blow 5 figures in a single session. Every time, he said the same thing. I don't know what came over me. But the truth was, it didn't come over him. It came from within him. A part he never allowed to exist until it seized control of the mouse. Your shadow doesn't care about your plan. It doesn't care about your rules. It's not evil, but it is primitive. It's the 8-year-old who was humiliated in school. The 16-year-old who needed to prove he was good enough. The part of you that, when under pressure, screams, "I'll show them." And in the market, that scream becomes a revenge trade. Here's the paradox. The more you try to suppress your shadow, the stronger it gets. It waits in the background, silent, patient, until the perfect moment to act, usually when you're tired, or angry, or overconfident. Mark Douglas didn't use the word shadow, but he described it perfectly. The part of you that avoids pain is the same part that prevents your growth. So, what do? You stop pretending it's not there. You give it a name, you learn its voice, you recognize when it's sitting in your chair, and instead of fighting it, you bring it into the light. Because only when you see the shadow can you make a different choice. Only then does the market stop being a battlefield and become a mirror. Pause here for a moment. Think about your worst trading day. Can you identify which version of you was actually clicking the buttons? Was it the professional, or was it someone much younger, much more desperate? And once you've seen this shadow, you'll realize it's not just reactive, it's hungry. Hungry for validation, for thrill, for dopamine. Which brings us to an addiction most traders never talk about. Insight 5, the dopamine gamble. The first time you win big, something happens inside your brain. A chemical flash. A spike of dopamine so pure it lights up your nervous system like fireworks. And just like that, you're hooked. But not on money, not on strategy, on that feeling. You start chasing it. Every trade becomes a ticket. Every setup a slot machine. And without realizing it, you've crossed an invisible line, from trading into gambling. This doesn't happen with fanfare. It happens quietly. You're still using indicators, still managing risk. But something subtle has changed. You're no longer trading to build wealth. You're trading to feel something. Picture a trader, I'll call Jonah. His strategy was solid, his equity curve steady. But one day, he hit a massive win on a gut-feeling trade. It wasn't in his plan. It broke his rules. But it paid. Big. And that day changed everything, because now no win felt big enough unless it matched that one. He became erratic, over-leveraged, hyperactive. He wasn't trading anymore, he was chasing a chemical ghost. Jonah didn't need more discipline. He needed detox. See, dopamine isn't bad. It's biology. It's what motivates us. But unchecked, it becomes a silent addiction. And markets, they're the perfect supplier. Instant, endless, and emotion-driven. Mark Douglas wrote, "When you start expecting the market to make you feel good, you surrender your edge, because now you're not following logic, you're hunting highs. And every loss feels like withdrawal. This is where your shadow whispers, double the lot size. You're due for a win, just one more. And like any addict, you justify. You lie to yourself. You call it confidence. You call it instinct. But deep down, you're just trying to recreate a feeling that the market gave you once and has been taking from you ever since. Jung would say, this is the unconscious seeking wholeness in the wrong place. You're looking for internal validation from an external, chaotic force. And the market was never built to love you. It doesn't know your name. So, how do you break the loop? You stop trading for the hit. You trade to observe. You rewire the win, not as a thrill, but as a neutral data point. You reframe the loss, not as punishment, but as feedback. We've awakened to 5 uncomfortable truths. The mirror maze shows us we're trading our internal world. The invisible enemy reveals our unconscious patterns. The loop exposes our repetitive self-destruction. The shadow introduces us to our hidden self. And the dopamine gamble shows us our chemical addiction. Take a moment, breathe. Which pattern felt most familiar? That's where your journey of transformation begins. And when you start to see the game for what it is, the grip loosens. Because underneath the craving isn't just greed, it's a deeper wound, the longing to feel seen, to feel worthy. Which leads us into Act 2, where we'll confront the roots of these patterns, where you face the roots of your trading wounds. Insight 6, the inner child's trade. There's a kind of loss that has nothing to do with money, but hurts 10 times more. It's the moment you cut a winning trade too early, not because of a signal, not because of logic, but because something inside you whispered, you don't deserve this. So you click, you exit.